Thank you, Chair. And I'll try not to ask too many questions. But I was really intrigued, Foreign Secretary, where you referred to the situation with the French border control at St Pancras station. I actually thought about this myself when I went to Lyon relatively recently. I guess an important difference, though, is that the French don't claim sovereignty over St Pancras station, at least not yet. And so Spain do claim Gibraltar as Spanish territory. What weight has been given to that consideration?
It's a very good point. A lot of weight is given to it in that we should approach this negotiation with a high degree of scepticism, with very, hardened senses about not, agreeing to things that we would in any way regret. I would say, though, that one of the advantages, if we could get this treaty, even though it's a treaty, as I said, that would have provisions so that you could leave it if you wanted to, if we had the treaty, it would regularise and formalise the position in a very positive way, I think, for the UK.
I guess what the concern is this the salami slicing tactics?
No, because it really isn't, because it's not this deal, then another deal, then another deal. It's like, can we achieve this combination of things? Base, sovereignty, success for government of Gibraltar. Then that's it.
How would you?
Because you see, they don't want to join the EU. They don't want to join the customs union. They don't want to join the single market. This is not like a kind of country that's sort of moving towards the EU in lots of ways. It wants this ability to have a border that's open because of its economic model.
Spain do want Gibraltar as Spanish territory.
And they're not going to get it.
And I just want to I certainly don't want you to upset the Spanish at this stage of the negotiations, but
probably have already. But
how would you characterise the attitude of Spain during these negotiations, both in public and in private?
They say they want to achieve a deal because they'd like to, get this situation regularised and sorted. And don't underestimate the extent to which Gibraltar and the shared prosperity agenda between Gibraltar and southern Andalusia. Gibraltar gives work to 15,000 Spanish people, and well-paid work, highly paid work in attractive sectors. So, that's what they say. They would like to see a deal for those reasons.
A fluid border is in the interests of Spain as well as Gibraltar, right?
It is, but I think it's in both. It's the interests of both, but it's certainly the thing that Gibraltar wants that causes a lot of the questions we've been having to arise.
So if a fluid border is in the interest of both Spain, both the people of Gibraltar, and the status quo. And I hear you saying that the status quo, what did you say? The status quo is not forever. I heard you say that.
And that's the status quo about the operation of the border control.
As it is
just
right
simply
now.
No, but let me be clear, because I don't want to be misquoted. I'm not saying the status quo isn't forever in terms of Gibraltar. As far as I'm concerned, the status quo of Gibraltar as sovereign British territory is forever.
Oh, right? No, I understand that.
I'm literally saying the status quo with the way the border controls are operating today, because they haven't introduced the Schengen controls yet. Full Schengen controls.
I appreciate that, and I certainly wasn't suggesting for 1 second you were saying the status quo around Gibraltar's place within, or as British territory, is the status quo. I understand that, but you said the status quo around the transitional border arrangements we have at the moment, if you like,
yes,
that is not forever. But if that fluid border is in Spain's interests, it's in Gibraltar's interests, and it's working now. Why isn't it working now?
Because at the moment you still have times when the queues get quite long, and of course the 15,000 people have to go through the borders every day, and also there's, we think, been a bit of
it's only if Spain's attitude changes, right, and hardens.
Yes, so there's two answers to that question. One is the border's not operating brilliantly today, even though they haven't introduced full Schengen checks.
Right.
Also, it tends to be people who've got either temporary residence cards or British citizens who are having the worst experience at the border, frankly. So it's not working great at the moment. And if full Schengen checks were introduced, which is what Spain, it says it would have to do as a Schengen country next to a non-Schengen country, there's a good chance that the border situation could get worse. That's why I said the status quo isn't forever. We shouldn't think, we're not comparing the status quo as it is today on a good day with what happens when you're doing Gibraltar checks and Schengen checks inside the airport or wherever it's going to be. That's not comparing apples and apples. Do you get me?
Yeah. How would you approach it? How would you characterise the EU's approach and attitude towards these negotiations?
Oh, I think that part is sort of like, can we please? I mean, they're a bit exasperated. That's, you know, I mean, to me, they're the 30,000 incredibly important people living in Gibraltar. But I think the EU is sort of, can we please try and make some progress and do a deal, because there are lots of other things we've got to focus on. I would say they've been constructive. I mean, they can, as you know, when it comes to doctrine in the EU about anything, they can be incredibly stubborn, and we've seen that over Northern Ireland and elsewhere, so there's a bit of that going on. But generally speaking, I would say that Šefčovič is, you know, he would like to get an agreement and put this to bed.
And just finally, just going back to the issue of Spain and their attitude, are you confident that the views of the Spanish region bordering Gibraltar, Andalusia, some of the mayors and the administrations, have they been taken into account in the Spanish position? Or is it all rhetoric? You know,
I think they are, in that, you know, the Spanish government I think is quite cognizant of what the Andalusian border region would like. They refer to that. When I bring it up, they check it and agree with it. So yeah, I would say yes.
Okay, because their interests and Madrid's interests, especially when it comes up to European elections, if you like, not always aligned.
Very good point. I think that's a very good point. And understanding each other's politics is very important, which is another reason why this committee meeting is very helpful.
Well, I'm very glad that we're being so helpful.